This is a film study to focus on Nate Wiggins, who I think is playing at an extremely high level. Of course, he did have a battle with Rome Odunze in the Ravens' 30-16 win over the Bears on Sunday. He's had 2 consecutive matchups, albeit with the bye week sandwiched in between them. Devontae Adams, Rome Odunze, big, strong receivers. He's not always, quote, traveling to Odunze in this film. I think I've got 12 or 13 plays queued up for you. In my opinion, the Ravens' brand of defense, their connectedness, their ability to cover routes has improved dramatically in the Rams and the Bears game. I understand it that people are going to say Matt Stafford and Caleb Williams just missed throws and this is an anomaly. I don't think so. I think the quality of the defense has improved the moment they moved Kyle Hamilton up into the box as almost a hybrid nickel Sam. First 2 possessions, a rough start for the defense. Fortunately, we're able to get a couple of stops. We have not defended this play-action concept well at all in recent weeks. Not blaming it on Nate Wiggins by any means. It's the entire defensive personnel that's out there. So you got the jet motion by Burden, and then the follow action by the running back. So the running back flow and the motion by Burden are going in the same direction. Caleb Williams booting in the opposite direction, tight end running out into the flats. Wiggins is really in a no-win situation here. If Hamilton is going to go to the quarterback, then someone's got to cover this in the flat. So presumably that would be Wiggins. And then if Wiggins is covering that route, then maybe Stark should be here. Let's do it the other way, right? If someone else is supposed to go to the quarterback, maybe an edge defender, then Kyle Hamilton should be here, and Wiggins is in the right spot. And then he's able to pass off that route to Starks on the back end. I'm not sure who's right or who's wrong. I just know that consistently we're getting beat by this. The Rams had a big completion on it to the tight end to their right. The Texans, I believe, had one. And in fact, look, the Texans are doing a great job overall of running play action concepts. They're beating everybody with it. So we're no different in that regard. But this, I'm not saying that this is Wiggins' fault, but he's involved in the play, trying to tackle a Colston Loveland a little bit late. For the most part in 2025, we've not done a good job of dealing with a QB boot situation. Green did get the pressure on the second possession, which is, a little bit of an anomaly. First possession, he'll be spot shadowed in yellow. I maybe should have said that. It's a play action over concept to Odunze. So he's going to run across the field. Roquan collisioned Odunze 2 or 3 times in this game. Toss boot action by the quarterback, Caleb Williams. Overreaction by some of our defenders, perhaps. Maybe they're just keying or seeing the running back. So Gilman is filling outside, and Buchanan is heavy here on the reaction. Odunze is going to get collisioned by Roquan in the middle of the field. And Wiggins had to run through some traffic. I think him and Buchanan kind of got tangled up for a moment. You can see no pressure on the quarterback at all. Another example of a boot concept really beating us to the outside and then giving the quarterback the option to either run the ball to the edge or throw it. In this case, it's a 13-yard gain to Odunze, who had beaten Wiggins across the field. At this point, Caleb Williams is 3 of 3 already on the first drive. 3rd and 6, and this is going to be a great job by Odunze to get the conversion. First of all, he gets smacked in the mouth again in the middle of the field. It's by Roquan. It's really a mesh concept with the running back running a wheel down here to the bottom side of the screen. Short motion by Odunze running across the middle of the field. And like I said, he gets really collisioned by Roquan. And that allows Wiggins to get connected to his route and basically stay on his hip throughout the rest of the route. We're talking about right here. But Odunze does a great job, man, of using his strength. Basically, he's going to take Wiggins upfield towards the goal line. It's not really a push-off, just a hedge. He's using his frame, his strength to push Wiggins in that direction. I don't know if the refs should call that. I mean, he's not extending his arms. To me, it's just 2 guys battling and playing football and competing because of Wiggins' frame, his more slight frame, his less strength. Maybe that's why that Odunze is able to create that space. It's very similar, even though it's a different play, to what Hopkins did to Wright. He just basically overpowered him. The only difference being that Hopkins, probably made contact with the guy's face mask. Same play from the end zone angle. Here's Roquan. By the way, Buchanan is on the wheel to Swift. He'll go off screen to our left pretty quickly. There's the collision, and credit Odunze, man, the ability to play through that. After getting smacked by Roquan, he just continues on his path. He just puts his foot in the ground and gets back to playing football. Wiggins, like I said, gets connected to him, and I think he's got good awareness. Wiggins is one of those guys that he can play man and he can keep eyes on the quarterback. Not everyone is able to do that. They'll oftentimes lose the receiver. In any case, it's a conversion on a 3rd and 6. No one out there to impede Williams once again. Fortunately, we were able to get the stop there, or I should say hold them to a field goal after the sack by Mike Green. This is a 3rd and 6 on the second possession. I believe Wiggins is going to be called for a penalty here, a contact beyond the 5-yard limit. Cool concept. Ben Johnson used this a lot in Detroit. So from the opposite side, the receiver is going to run underneath towards the sticks. The line to gain here is between the the negative 41 and the negative 42, and that's really going to pull Alohi Gilman out of the picture. So we're talking about Gilman stepping downhill to deal with this route, and it kind of just opens up that space for Odunze to run onto. Wiggins is holding or grabbing past the 5 yards, fine. Again, there's a lot of contact between these guys, particularly on that 3rd down I just showed you. I felt like this one was, maybe a little bit soft, but I really like the concept that the Bears are using. Like I said, something that Ben Johnson has done for a couple of years, in particular, with the Detroit Lions, basically occupy or pull that safety down, makes it an easy read for the quarterback, in my opinion. Once he sees the safety sit down on that route, Caleb Williams, knows where to go, and in this case, it's his favorite receiver, Rome Odunze. Pass is actually incomplete, so this was a critical moment, if you ask me, the contact downfield being called. I do want to talk about briefly this kind of new dime look that we're showing. I don't mean the fact that we're using dime. What I'm referring to is Zach Orr deploying Simpson and Van Noy on the same side. The only defensive tackle, defensive lineman on the field in this look is Travis Jones. Roquan and Kyle Hamilton are presumably the two inside linebackers. Even though Simpson's on the field, he's not being deployed here as an inside linebacker. He's dropping. Really, this is a spy. This is so ironic to see. It's really straight out of the Kelvin Shepard playbook and what the Detroit Lions used against the Ravens in that Week 3 win in Baltimore. You can see we're only rushing 3. I think that Roquan has the back. So I think as the back crosses, Roquan's got the back. Kyle Hamilton has the tight end, in my opinion. And since the tight end stays into block, you can see he's locked onto him. So it kind of looks like a spy for Hamilton. That's not what I think is occurring. This is really functionally just 2-man with a QB spy in the case of Simpson. It's the same thing that Kelvin Shepard and the Lions used against Lamar Jackson in Week 3 to help them generate 7 sacks that were, at least a couple of them, a handful of them, I should say, very abnormal. Still on the second possession, Wiggins up top, again, matched up against Odunze, and he's really throttling us at this point. Odunze came into the game, I believe, 24 catches on 46 targets, so right at 52%, or maybe almost 53%, and he was very high percent early. It's a play-action concept, and he wins to the outside against Wiggins, man-to-man in space. So we're talking about immediate read for Caleb Williams. There's no one else that he's really looking at after this play-action. And it just doesn't seem like Wiggins is able to change direction and then burst as quickly. He kind of gets sold on something moving to the inside from Odunze here. And so from this point on, he's just unable to redirect and burst as quickly as Odunze does in order to possibly defend the route. So another completion for Odunze. I think this one goes down for 16 yards. Moving on to the fourth possession, we're into the third quarter. The Ravens have taken a 10-6 lead. Nate down here to the bottom side of the screen. I think this is man, but it's almost a zone reaction. This is kind of what I talked about earlier, in that he's great at playing man, but also being able to keep eyes on the quarterback. So Zacchaeus, if I'm saying that right, is going to kind of delay his route, and that's what fooled me a little bit when I saw this the first time. I was like, okay, it looks like zone because we're flat-footed here, meaning there's no back pedal at all. We're just flat-footed, and I think it's just because he sees the quarterback, and he's got great eyes and awareness on the route. So he's able to drive on this, in my opinion, because of his eyes, because of how confident he is. There's no release, basically, by Zacchaeus. It's a short gain. Like I said, this is late in the second quarter, so he's not going to step up and open the possibility for Zacchaeus to get downfield, especially when there was a delayed or actually no real release by Zacchaeus initially. Moving to the third quarter, again, we're trying to just focus on Wiggins as much as possible, more so than the gameplay, but you can see the situation. The Ravens are up 13-6, and it's a 2nd and 7. There's a threat of the blitz by Hamilton. And I think that's what causes Williams to think, okay, I'm just going to get rid of this ball early. There's the pull by the guard or by the offensive lineman, and then you do see it looks like it is actually a cold screen. You see the offensive line working out here to be a part of the blocking scheme. Nate goes underneath, which is interesting. Normally you want him to maintain outside leverage. He goes underneath, and then that allows Starks to go over the top and basically funnel, Luther Burden ends up being a tackle for loss. Really great reaction. I thought Nate played another one really well, but he just ended up in a 2-on-1 situation, and I think it was Zacchaeus was able to gain like 3 or 4 yards. Moving forward, this is the sixth possession, and we're up now 16-6. He's up at the top side of the screen. I think this is a moment where Ben Johnson really took advantage of our defense 3 times on this possession, in fact, on third down. So the concept is going to take advantage of what I think we're playing, which is quarter, half, or cover 6. You're getting a vertical by Zacchaeus, the point man, and then the outside receiver is Odunze. He's going to kind of run a corner route over the top of Wiggins, who's a cover 2 corner. So we're talking about Wiggins right here kind of sitting in the flats with the half-field defender being Starks. Like I said, I believe that this is, quarter, half, or cover 6. Watch Gilman here, trying to communicate to Starks and tell him, hey, you can push because I've got no work down here. And that's great. Like, communication is awesome. First of all, it's available to these guys because nobody's wearing their mouthpiece, and that's part of the reason why, there's a little bit of a safety risk in not doing so. But in any case, it's a little unrealistic to me to think that we're going to push Starks over to deal with this route, and then Gilman is going to be able to take over this vertical. To me, that's a little bit unrealistic. We kind of got to give credit to Ben Johnson for the call. It's a 3rd and 6, so Wiggins can't just leave this route alone. He's got to at least honor it, and that allows Odunze to get open over the top. I don't fault Wiggins at all. I just think this is a situation where maybe our coverage, is a little bit predictable, and Ben Johnson's taken advantage of it by getting his team in the right look. In this case, maybe we needed to check out of it against a bunch to the right side with a tight end set on the backside. But in any case, it was a really nice play by them. I would trust Hamilton to be man on this tight end if we wanted to, by default, push the safeties over and not rely on the communication in order to get that done. Communication that with, thousands of people in the stadium making noise, well, maybe not thousands in the case of a 1-5 Ravens team. In my opinion, it's a little bit unrealistic. In any case, on this drive, the Bears, go 3 for 3 on third downs, and I think all 3 situations Ben Johnson had a pretty good idea of the coverage that he was going to see and could basically hand Caleb Williams a pretty easy read. We're still on that same possession. We've now flipped the field because the possession bridged the end of the third into the beginning of the fourth quarter. There's been a third down conversion in between here where there was a screen to DeAndre Swift where no one's on the running back. It didn't necessarily involve Nate Wiggins. This is a really nice play. Quick reactions from him. It's a 12 personnel group by the Bears, and they're gonna run the ball. Ends up going off tackle for Swift, and it's going to be Wiggins and Hamilton involved with the play. Odunze is not blocking Wiggins. He's going to get the safety, which I believe is Starks. So it leaves Wiggins out in space, outside in angle, able to get involved with the tackle with Kyle Hamilton, who once again I think you would have to call him at this point a nickel Sam in this defensive structure. The Bears are able to score 2 plays later on a 3rd and goal. The third down that they converted, it was an 11 personnel run concept. We responded with our nickel, and it just ended up being too easy. This is the play that, I don't want to say changed the game, but it really defines it. The Ravens are already in the lead, but I think it's important to note here, we're in the fourth quarter. They scored a touchdown on their most recent possession, the one that I just showed you, even though I didn't display the touchdown. They've got an opportunity to come down and take the lead. I don't think this is maybe as important as some of Marlon's interceptions in 2024, but it kind of reminds me of it in that, Odunze was making plays. He's given us issues, but Nate just keeps on competing, and I think that's got to be mentioned in terms of Nate Wiggins so far in 2025. Again, I think this is quarter, half, where this is the half part where he's in the flats, and we've got a half-field defender in Gilman. But the only difference is Nate is following Odunze across the field like it's man-to-man. If he sat and stayed up here, then this route obviously could end up being open. Marlon would be there to react after the catch. It's a great play by Wiggins, clearly, to undercut it. I think it's his second interception of the year. He's a competitor. I think he's playing really well. The numbers maybe against Odunze don't bear it out, but this play, again, reminds me of what Humphrey was able to do in 2024. Basically, plug us in with turnovers that we weren't getting otherwise. Marlon, I think, ended up with 6 interceptions during the regular season last year. This was a badass football play, not game-changing, but game-altering, maybe. We already had the lead, yes. The Bears had the football, however, with an opportunity to go all the way down the field and possibly take the lead, and instead we've totally flipped the script, get our offense the opportunity. Of course, we score 2 plays later, I think, on the tight end leak to Charlie Kolar. So it's 23-13 now. Wiggins up to the top side of the field on the 8th possession, deeper into the third quarter. I get it that we all, myself included, have been negative about the defense at times, but we have to admit it when the evidence is right in front of our face. They're playing a better brand of defense so far. Does Caleb Williams miss some throws? Sure, okay. Did Matt Stafford miss some throws? Fine. Did Devontae Adams drop some? That's fine. How long do we have to see these guys play better defense before we say something appears to be different when they get Kyle Hamilton up closer to the box and involve him where he basically is superpowered? That helps the defense, helps the rest of the defense. Why? Does it make everyone else's job easier? I don't know. I think we can be, in our nickel defense, to be solid, if not unspectacular, against the run, while still being very sound against the pass. Wiggins there for the defense against DJ Moore. But one thing I want to point out, he does a great job with his eyes. So as Williams is releasing the football, I'm going to backtrack this just a little bit. Try to keep your visual acuity on Nate Wiggins. So he's clearly looking back at the quarterback while tracking this route. And I think that's one of the things he does really well, which is it's different from Marlon Humphrey. When Marlon kind of looks back in the backfield at the quarterback while playing man, I feel like he loses connection or loses awareness with the route. Nate Wiggins does not. Last one that we'll show you, it's actually a completion, a really sick route by Odunze, who's kind of hard to see down here in the shadows later on in the fourth quarter. We're up 23-16. They have an opportunity, of course, to go down and get a tie score. This is a really cool route, in my opinion. Kind of stutter around the 30-yard line, and then he'll snap the route back down. So Nate's got a lot to deal with. He's looking at the quarterback, and then as soon as the ball is snapped, turns, gets his eyes on Odunze, who stutters, and then there's, a slight touch between these guys. I'm not advocating for stuff like that to be called at all. I like the physicality between these guys. I like the matchup, and Odunze certainly won a lot of those individual one-on-ones out in space. I still trust Nate Wiggins, and I get it that not everyone's going to have the same level of confidence. I think he's playing smooth. I think he's playing smart. And generally, he did give up a bigger catch earlier to Odunze. Generally, the catches he's giving up are in front of him. Statistically, Odunze had a lot of impact, right? 7 catches, 114 yards. I think he had the one big one on the cover 3, and then another big one down the field against Wiggins in man. And Wiggins was also called for the 5-yard illegal contact beyond the 5-yard barrier. Wiggins, nonetheless, he had the interception. He had 7 tackles, 1 TFL, the one against Burden on the screen. There's been high standards for Wiggins in the last 2 games that we've seen since Hamilton has moved up. He's been matched up against Adams and Odunze, and all I know is Zach Orr's defense has given up 33 points in the last 8 quarters. Now, we were giving up 35 per game, maybe 34 point something per game before that. I'm talking about before the Rams game. Here's what they've done. The Rams, 15. Well, let me show what I would like to refer to. Now, this is kind of difficult to see, perhaps, but on the right-hand side of the screen for you, this is the Ravens 2025 season. This is a TOR metric that myself and some other people created. All the way to the right is TOR allowed. It's essentially an offensive efficiency rating. And you can see the first 5 games, horrible, right? Except for the Browns game. Week 2, if you track it all the way across, is a 49. That means the efficiency rating that we allowed Cleveland was a 49. You can see offensively for us in that game, we were only a 26, so not very good ourselves. But then Detroit, 100. Chiefs, 73. Houston, 91. Against the Rams and the Bears, 33, which was LA's season low, by the way. And then Chicago, a 49. I think that's important. 15 first downs for the Rams, 19 for Chicago. I wanted to share this. I didn't know what to expect out of it, but I think it's valid. I really do. We've allowed 33 points in the last 2 games. Those first 2 stops are holding the Bears to field goals. That's really the difference. Do I think this is a great defense right now? Certainly not, right? But Wiggins' ability to move around and compete against other teams' number 1 receivers, it's a big deal. It's a very tall task. He's certainly not shutting them down. I think he did a great job on Adams. Odunze got into him a little bit more with his physicality, his size. That was a factor on at least a couple of those plays. The hold down the field, it should be called fine, but those guys are generally competing. I've been enjoying his film. I've been enjoying the quality of Nate Wiggins' play. To me, he's a big part of what Zach Orr and the defense is doing right now because they trust him down the field. They trust him against those matchups. And along with Hamilton moving up, right? Marlon playing a little bit more to the outside. I'd like to cover the dime stuff that we're doing, that new look that I discussed during one of the plays, I think the 4th or 5th one, where basically Zach Orr has Simpson and Van Noy on the same side and doing different things with them in terms of the coverage, in terms of the blitz / spy. I think there's an improved efficiency with this defense through 8 quarters. I feel comfortable saying that. Who knows what it'll look like Thursday night against the Dolphins? It's a short week, and even though Tyreek Hill is out, those guys certainly put a whipping on the Atlanta Falcons this past weekend. I think 34-10, something like that. In any case, you guys let me know what you think of the video in the comments section. I'm proud and having fun watching Nate Wiggins' film. Is he a shutdown corner right now? Well, certainly he didn't shut down Rome Odunze, but he gives us a chance, I think, against the better receivers in the league when we let him travel. Sometimes the Ravens are just going right and left with him and Marlon Humphrey, occasionally rotating in Odunze. It's an interesting dynamic right now. The depth that we thought we had earlier in the year with Odunze, Wiggins, Jair Alexander on the outside has clearly changed now. Essentially, Jair's been removed, not had an impact at all. Marlon has been shifted to outside corner because Kyle Hamilton moved up. And right now, that choice looks spectacular to me so far, at least statistically, in terms of the points allowed in the last 8 quarters played. Appreciate you guys' time.